like
Good.
have to go get like a snack and all kinds of craziness. It's too much.
Yes, snacks are necessary. They're very, very necessary, especially on a Sunday. Okay, so I was just telling everybody that I got dressed just for them. So I'm going to start with you. Can you let us know what you're wearing today, or either on your face, your
See, I
earrings,
didn't know
whatever?
you. I didn't
No,
know
not
you.
everything. I know you're probably, it's okay if you don't want to show us your shoes. Just what's going on up here. Tell us about it.
Shoes? No, we're not wearing any shoes. Barefoot over here. But
Yeah.
I am wearing some random, like, yellow shorts you can't see. They're just random. I don't remember where I got them from. But I did get this lovely top from Grassfield. I, love them. And
Yes,
I thought,
I'm loving the print.
since we were going to, talk about multicultural, I just felt festive. Felt festive.
I love the festivity. I love the print. And for those of you who don't know, every time Roxy sees me in Nigeria, she's like, bring me fabric, bring me fabric. So she's been sending me to the market. She's been sending me to the market in Nigeria to buy fabric for her.
Praise the Lord that I asked you, because now the world shut down and I have to buy fabric. Thank you.
And you got your fabric. So yeah, collaboration. And I am wearing a pink suit. I have a pink suit with gold buttons and stuff for you guys. And I'm wearing fuzzy shoes.
You have a full suit on, like straight up.
I do have a full suit with fuzzy shoes. Yes. Yes. Because this is what we do when we're live. All right.
Exactly. Get dressed.
Yes, get dressed just for y'all. So I'm super excited that y'all are here with us today. I see more people joining on. I'm really, really excited. So again, today's live session, we have Reverend Roxanne Birchfield, aka Married by Rev Roxy. She is an officiant, and I'm really excited to have her on today. We've worked together, of course, a number of times, but besides that, we're also friends. So this is going to be fun, guys.
Yeah.
So we're going to start. Roxanne, do me a favor, introduce yourself. We all know you're a celebrity officiant, so do us a favor. Just give us more of an intro. Where have we seen you?
Okay.
Tell us what you do, what you're passionate about, all that good jazz.
First of all, the funny part about the celebrity officiant part is I don't call myself that. Essence called me that, and I'll take it. But I don't call myself that. I'm here for the people, for anybody, right? But I have had some celebrity moments, I would say, that kind of just stumbled into my world. So a little bit about me. My background is really in terms of ministry, because people are always like, well, what church do you go to? Like, these are the questions I get when I go to weddings and do weddings. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background. So my husband is actually currently a full-time pastor at a church in Queens, New York. Obviously, everything is being done online currently. But my husband's a full-time pastor. But my ministry really began in the Army Reserves. I was a chaplain candidate first. Candidate means that while you train to become a chaplain in the military, you are in seminary school. So it was like a special program for those who wanted to have a ministry that was, in government, essentially, which is weird because there's a separation of church and state. But yes, the government has their own spiritual leaders, essentially, because this is still the land of the free, and, freedom for those to worship in any way that they want. So they have people from all different faiths that are leaders that are provided to government officials to have their own when we travel throughout the world and we go do what we do. So that's where my specialty in ministry comes out of. And then I also have served as a chaplain clinically, like in different hospitals. So my background, although being out of Christian ministry, has predominantly been in secular environments. So I feel very at home doing ministry in terms of officiating weddings for people I don't know. And that's actually a very familiar place. Oftentimes I'm in a place where whether I'm ministering or supporting people that I've only known for a very short period of time in crisis. So it's kind of exciting to do something a little bit different and focus on weddings, which is not really a crisis in a negative way, but it is still crisis in the sense that it's very important.
Yeah, there's still lots of logistics and definitely time crunches and all that good stuff. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so I'm loving that intro, so you guys get to know Roxy a little bit more. So the reason most people will call her a celebrity officiant is that she officiated weddings for a few people that you know, like Joel Santana. The wedding was on Love and Hip Hop. you know, and a few other people. She was on Love is Blind as well, most recently.
Yes, we in quarantine watching that. So I mean, every day I get a flow of new people that are like, "OMG, can we talk about this?"
Yeah, yeah. I'm mad I watched it before quarantine started. I feel like I should have. Well, I didn't know it was coming, but I feel like I should have
Me
waited. I
too.
waited till
Me
quarantine started to
too.
watch. But
Even for
I
me,
already
I'm
finished
like,
it.
I binge watched that thing within like 10-hour time period. I didn't go to sleep just to be able to
Same.
like get it in my system, to only find out that now you're stuck in the house and you have plenty of time to watch it.
Yeah, basically. So that's why we call her that. And I'm also going to introduce myself in case there's anybody who doesn't know who we are. So we're Statuesque Events. We're a wedding planning company. We're based right smack between DC and Baltimore, but we serve weddings along the East Coast. So last year we were in Orlando to, New England. And we do lots of weddings, lots of blended culture weddings, as well as multicultural weddings. We love culture. We love celebrating with you. We love seeing cultures get blended, all of that. So that's what we do. We're passionate about it. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But you may have seen some of our weddings in different places, like the Knot magazine a few times, Munaluchi magazine a few times, etc. We've also been on Fox 5 before, different hairdo, but I was on there. So, so those are a few places you may have seen us. And we really just love planning beautiful weddings, infusing culture, and making sure that the logistics are sound. All right. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. So I'm going to start with you, Roxy. I'm just going to toss a question in there. So like I said, we plan a lot of blended culture weddings. The weddings we worked on last year were all blended culture. We did a Trini and Salvadorian wedding. We did a Nigerian
Y'all
and a
are the
Mexican
queens.
wedding.
I'm just going to give it to you. Y'all are the queens of multicultural weddings. I'm always astounded and totally impressed by like the kinds of cultures that are merging out there. So
Yep.
y'all have that.
It's
That's
what we
just
love. Listen, it's what we love. It's what we love. I'm gonna give y'all a preview. Next year we have a Guamanian wedding and Nigerian wedding. So someone from Guam and Nigeria together.
what?
So yep, exactly. So for all of y'all who are watching this, make sure you also like us, like follow us, stay tuned, because we've got a lot more blending, merging, and culture celebration coming your way. All right, that's what we love to do. It's what we love to do. So, for me, I know that a lot of times people come to me and they're like, well, we have this culture and that culture, right? Like, how do we blend it, right? We've done an Ethiopian and Pakistani wedding before, for instance, and it's like, how do we blend both cultures? We did. And it's like, how do we blend both cultures? How do we make sure both people are represented, et cetera? And for us, it is a little bit of a challenge, but we like the challenge, right? We find ways to blend cultures in food, right? Coming up with a food service way that actually works, right? That for two completely separate menus so that it doesn't take forever, having different dances infused. For me, I think my favorite ways to infuse the cultures are in food, music, and clothing. Like those are three great ways to infuse, the menus. Like we always have blended culture menus. We've done it both plated and buffet. There are different ways to go about that, but, blending the food is a big way we like to do it. We love to blend the clothing. There's usually an outfit change, or for instance, like that Ethiopian Pakistani wedding, they wore their traditional attire the whole time. He wore Pakistani, she wore Ethiopian. Yep, the whole time. The whole time they wore their culture. So, those are ways to show people like, this is who I am. Because people come to your wedding to experience who you are, how you are, and to see that, right? And of course, the music. So it's, that comes with its own challenges, right? Planning two cultures in one day. But I guess I wanted to ask you, what would you say is a common challenge? If you could just pick one, I'm sure there's multiple. When you work with couples who are blending their lives, right? And they come from two completely cultural backgrounds. And a lot of times I'm sure that can happen even if you're from the same place. But two people coming from different cultural backgrounds and they're trying to blend their lives. Like, what are some common things to look out for, right? Because I think a lot of times people may kind of undervalue counseling. So I'm trying to understand, like, what are some common things that you see with people that you help them through?
That's a loaded question, first of all. We could be here all day. But first of all, I'm happy you brought up counseling, because this is the kind of things that I think when people say people are just astounded by the fact that I don't force people to do counseling. I'm like, it's not my style. I don't got time for, and also I don't have time for that. I am this is not me being like faking the funk or anything. I am so busy. If you don't want to do counseling, that you're grown. You're grown. You know what I mean? This is America. You're grown. I don't have time for it. You're grown. And you've got to know what's good for you. But let me tell you something. Counseling is not about, oh, we good, we don't need it. Like, I don't know. I've been married 8 years. And in my experience, it's like there's always something to discuss. There's always something to break down. And and we're talking, you know, I'm in an interracial relationship. So we're talking not just ethnic background. See, people have to understand how dynamic human beings are, right? Like if I wasn't a minister, I would have been a sociologist because I love studying people in groups, and how groups function. And what I've learned is it don't matter even if you come from the same race or the same culture. There's always something to discuss, and it's just not that simple to say we come from the same this, so we're good. I mean, you should know this. Like, imagine you're Nigerian background, you marry another Nigerian. Don't talk about tribal. Just say someone from Nigeria. Is it gonna be smooth? Is it nothing to discuss? No, there's plenty to discuss. There's still differences even within groups. So what people have to understand is to be an individual human being is complex all alone. Just ask any psychologist, right? So when we function in groups and all we need is more than one person to really be in a group, it's going to get complicated. And so every single couple I have has been completely different. There's no cookie cutter thing that I can invent to make it good for all, which is why I don't do too many mass showcases about like counseling. People are like, oh, you should do like an online whatever presentation. I'm like, it's still not even gonna soothe the soul. Everybody kind of needs a custom situation. Like everything is complex. It's not like a blanket thing. And so what I found is that people discover that there's more differences to just race. Because I think race is the easy one. It's so corny to me. It's not even funny. It's like deeper than that. It's like ethnicity, which is what you're really talking about, brings a really detailed thing. And what people don't realize is oftentimes ethnicity comes with other components that we don't normally attribute to ethnicity. For example, sometimes spirituality and religion comes with ethnic group too. There's a piece to that is that way. And people need to acknowledge that even though two people who identify as Christian, right, are getting married, there might still be spiritual aspects of someone's ethnic group that are brought into a wedding situation that might still need to be discussed. You know, like, wait, what is that?
Both the wedding and both the wedding and the marriage. I mean, one person thinks we need a 2-hour ceremony because we have to do hymns because it's not a wedding and we don't have 30 minutes of hymns. And person number 2 is like, let's just get married. Like, I don't understand. There's a lot to it, right? You have to have praise and worship. You have to have this. You have to have a psalmist. This thing. You have to have this. Like, even 2 Christian people can have, you know, those differences. So that's real.
Yeah. So I have, like, I give an example. I have a couple. The one person in the relationship identifies as Jewish. And if people understand anything about Judaism, they identify with their religious identity as an ethnicity as well. Like, so even though the person might go to church with you, you're Christian, they're kind of like merging into Christianity, going to church, but they say being Jewish is important to them. What does that actually mean? And how do you unpack it? So you need somebody who is equipped, and this is the part of being an officiant that's way more complicated than just reading something off a piece of paper at someone's wedding. You need to work with someone who is used to environments where they're dealing with interfaith situations. So it doesn't mean that the person does not respect your Christianity. It does not mean that they don't care about it. You just have to understand what's important to their level of observance as a Jew. And some people don't even know what that even means. Like, they're like, what do you mean level of observance? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's different denominations of like Protestant Christianity. There's different levels of observance, right? If I grew up in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, I know that Hasidic Judaism has a very specific way of functioning that is not the same as someone who is a Reformed Jew. That's what I'm saying. And you may not even understand even what I'm saying when I say that. So you need someone who really has real knowledge about this and understands how to make people feel comfortable having the conversation.
Right. Yeah, because you definitely need help navigating through these conversations. I would say, I mean, those sorts of things are touchy, right? I think a lot of times people say, you know, we love each other, so we don't really need to talk too much about religion. We don't really need to talk about those sorts of things. They kind of like scale past it because they want to focus on things. It's so funny because like even in wedding planning, sometimes people kind of scale past things and they don't come out until we start planning the actual event. And it's like, okay, you guys have 2 different ideas even about like colors or this, and one person doesn't want to offend the other, so it hasn't come up yet, right? And that's why sometimes you need that mediator. That's why there's so many hands that go into wedding planning, right? Because you need people to help you like pull things out to help you understand, like, okay, the fact that you're having differences is normal. Let's find a middle ground, like, right? Like, where just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're attacking you. And just like going through having a mediator to help both parties understand that, like both. And I think it applies to wedding planning. And I can only imagine it goes even deeper when it goes into, you know, talking about how your future is going to look and things like that. So, I mean, what does counseling typically look like, right? So I know that's a pretty vague question. So I'll first answer, what does wedding planning typically look like?
Yeah.
And so for when someone is full planning with us, they come to us, we have a consultation before they ever book. We just talk about what the process is. They sign up. The first thing we do is we sit down and we look at every single thing that is required for a wedding, right? And we talk about it. We map it out. We assign, and most of the time we assign a number to it, right? A budget amount to it. And we talk about it, right? Because sometimes someone may say, oh, well, this is my budget. But when we start talking, they're like, listen, video has to be like on, like up here. So then we're like, okay, if you want video to be up there, we need to add more to the budget. We talk about it. Like we literally rip the whole budget into pieces and like, you know, line it out into a dashboard from the very beginning. From then on, we coach them into finding the right vendors, you know, having meetings, meeting the right people to pull the whole thing together. And of course, there's a design process, which comes with a million iterations of the design plan and mapping things out and visiting vendors, right? So typically, I would say most of our clients book us anywhere from 8 months to a year and a half before the wedding. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. We planned a wedding in 3 months before. It was a 2-day wedding for almost 500 people. So yeah, we've done it. So we've planned weddings that were smaller and even less time as well. So we've, you know, the time frame for us, you know, it varies, but most of the time it's between that 8 months to a year and a half. So that's what I would say wedding planning looks like for us. On the wedding day, we're there with people for about 16 hours, which is long, but each one of our staff members is there for about 12 hours. Just to manage everything, make sure things are flowing smoothly and all of that. It's a lot of work, you know, and a lot of times people think it's just, you just need a person, just like toss someone there, give them a piece of paper with your schedule and it's going to flow smoothly. It doesn't work that way. Even with our lowest package, it doesn't work like that way. We get involved much earlier. So at a high level, I would say that's what wedding planning looks for us, right? Just generally that 8 to 12 months, we're meeting, we're vetting things out. And from the beginning, we're making a plan, right? We don't want to, you know, spend $20,000 on decor and not have any money left for the DJ. So we map it out so that if we, you know, I'm a realist. We map it out and we go from there. Do people go over budget? Most of the time, yes. But at least you're aware of what you're doing, right? You're aware from the beginning and it's not a shock. I really try to avoid the shock when we're planning weddings with our clients. So that's what it looks like for us. So for you, I guess when someone says, hey, I'm getting married, you know, I'd like for you to officiate my wedding. And I think we would like counseling too. What does that look like?
Well, first of all, I get so happy when people say they want to do counseling. Well, I like get most happy when they say it on their own. People are truly shocked that I don't convince them. When they say they don't, I like don't go back, circle back to it. I don't. I'm the millennials officiant. I am, because I handle my people the way they need to be handled. I'm not circling back. I'm not convincing. You know what the deal is. And first of all, when they decide that they want to do it, let me tell you, it makes the experience at the actual altar that much more emotional, but meaningful, all of it, because it's like I've really walked through a journey with you in a way that words cannot describe. None of my reviews online, although they're amazing, can ever describe the journey I take with couples when it comes to going through the premarital process and then being at the altar with them, reading their story and incorporating all these different important pieces, you know, into their day and their rituals. But when someone comes to me and they say they want to do premarital counseling, what they don't realize is that we're not setting up a bunch of meetings just to shoot the breeze. I have a program called SYMBIS, Save Your Marriage Before It Starts, that we take part in. And I love that it's very organized. There is an actual assessment that each person in the relationship takes on their own. Don't share answers. You take it wherever by yourself. And that gives me a 16 to a 20-page report about who you guys are as a couple. So there is a science piece to this. This is not just like I feel, I think, and based on whatever you feel like saying that day. There is an assessment you take that gives me a report of a lot of different details about who you are, your personality, what is your mindset going into marriage. Everyone has a mindset going into marriage, and oftentimes it's based on what you saw growing up. That's what it is. Oftentimes it's based sometimes even on prior relationships that you may have had. If you've had another marriage before coming into this marriage, we got to sort of talk about that a little bit before you go in. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. That's behind me. It's not behind you. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not behind you, because there was a reason why that didn't work out. And we need to revisit what those reasons are before we move forward, right? So that it makes sense to everybody why that was whatever happened was a deal breaker for you. Because my goal as being your officiant and being your counselor is that you are heading into a lifelong marriage. All right, we're not shooting the shot here. I don't want that. Like, I don't want that for you. And I hope you don't want that for yourself. This is not a shoot your shot. Like, I've had somebody say in counseling one time, this is like the biggest red flag I've honestly ever heard. They were like, oh, I'm just gonna get married and see where it goes. I was like, I don't like that. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not feeling that comment.
Oh my God. And see where it goes? Oh my gosh. You need to know where you're going. You should already know where you're going before you get in the ship. But
no, it's see where it goes. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna need you to fix that comment, not fake that comment, but really think about what you just said. And I need the person that heard it to think about what you just said. And like, let's talk about, are we okay with that? Like, see where this goes. Like, you don't care if it may not go nowhere good. Like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean to you? So I think it's a difference between talking out loud and knowing that you love each other. Like, do I believe that love conquers all? Honestly, no, because I think love is a colorful word. Colorful in the sense that it means that it's a feeling, right? And that it's also a decision. It's both of those things. It's a feeling and a decision. The decision part is very important, because when the feeling part ain't really there, you're going to need something else to be there, right? So it ain't enough to just say love conquers all. That's some Disney stuff. And I love Disney, but Disney is Disney, right? And real life is real life. So so I like to people to know that when they're paying for counseling, it's not a shoot your breeze conversation. Hey girl, how you doing? No, it is like you got an assessment to take. It's not a test, it's an assessment, so we can break down your whole personality, your whole way of being and functioning, and where you came from, and make sense of it in the relationship dynamics that you are about to have for life. And then we spend about 8 sessions. Your baseline is 8 one-hour sessions. And the beauty of it, you get 2 counselors, not just one. At least with us here at Rev Roxy, you have the wonderful Rev Roxy and Reverend Joshua, who also likes to call himself Mr. Rev Roxy. But you have the dynamic of a husband and wife. And the unique dynamic, I think, of Joshua and I is that everyone knows this is our story, that we met each other and got married in 3 weeks, which is like absolutely insane. And I've never really heard anybody else doing something so insane besides maybe people in the Bible. But we did that and it was insane. And there's a lot of things that we learned about each other, and that love is important, but we obviously went through the whole understanding different cultures and race and ideologies, political views. There's a million things in there, even though our anchored, common like core value was our faith, right? So yes, we were both Christians. That's good, a nice, good start. But there was a whole lot of other human stuff in there that had to be worked through within the 8 years in order to get to the place where you're like set to be on the track for lifelong marriage. And so we are able to kind of do something with that and share that with other couples who honestly, everybody that's coming to us has at least been dating longer than us. So I always tell people, y'all are all starting at a better advantage than we did, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
no, that's really good. That's really good. And I love it. And I love the fact that you guys got married in 3 weeks. It's one of those things, it's one of those forever debates that people have about how long should you date before you get married. And, I tell people all the time, listen, I know people who dated, thankfully my couples, for the most part, have stayed together. So I'm just talking about other people. But I know people who dated for 5-6 years and didn't make it long at all in marriage. And I know people who got married after just a little bit of time. One of my friends, they met maybe in about a week, they proposed. 6 months later, they were married, and they've been married 13 years, so it's like, it's one of those things. It's really about doing the work. It's more important to do the work than the amount of time that you spend in it, which is, again, a lot of things go that way. And I think that's why, counseling is so key. So I just want to chime in and say, If anyone has any questions, either for myself or Roxy about multicultural weddings, intercultural relationships, interracial relationships, counseling, whatever, any questions you have, please leave them in the comments. So I'm
Yes,
going
I
to be
see a lot
scanning
of
them and I'll
highs.
circle back with it. Yeah, so please, please, please leave them in the comments. We definitely appreciate your loves and your hearts and everything. Please, please keep hearting when you hear something that you like. We
Yeah.
definitely want your engagement. But again, we want to make sure you get your questions answered. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and we'll be reading them, as we're chatting. So I wanted to I wanted to chat with you about one thing, Roxy, about compromise. Like, what does compromise look like to you? Because I think that for us, again, with wedding planning, it's interesting because we are meeting with clients so frequently. At least in the worst case, we're meeting with people like monthly, but it's rarely that. It's usually much more than that, over a year and a half, right? So at that point, you get to see differences in the way people manage things, especially when it comes to what they think compromise is. So what I've seen is as compromise, and I can only speak of my world of wedding planning. You have the one couple where the bride says, I want a red wedding. And then the groom's like, oh, well, I was thinking blue. So then they say, okay, let's have a purple wedding, right? That's some people's understanding of compromise. There are other people who are just like, you have either the bride or the groom, usually the groom, who doesn't say anything. They're just like, whatever she wants, because what I think doesn't matter anyway. Let's just do whatever she wants and just move forward. Let's just get this over with. Let's just do whatever she wants. And that's what they think compromise is. And then you have other situations where someone's like, nope, this is what I have to have. Like, you just have to bend to what I want. Like, you have to compromise for me because this is what I want in this wedding. Like, I want whatever it is in the wedding. I want, a 10-tier cake, and you have to compromise and you have to pay for it. That's what I want. So I think that a lot of times people come with a different mindset of what compromise looks like. And I mean, I have my ways of managing the couples. For instance, in the groom who doesn't talk, sometimes I will ask them direct questions. What do you think? How would you like this? What is your favorite food? Just literally just saying, oh, what is this? And then, if the bride chimes in, I'm like, okay, that's great. So is that true? Like, do you like skewers, beef, chicken? Like, let's talk about it. Like, give me a direct answer, And then occasionally I've had, the groom say something and the bride's like, oh, that's dumb, right? Like, I had a groom once who said, how about we print out pictures of our faces and stick them on the vases for the decoration? And so your face. See, thankfully, I don't ever make those faces. I was just nodding. And the bride's like, no, that's stupid. That's tacky. Oh, wow, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. I said, well, we're probably not going to do that, but let me think about it. And eventually I thought about it, and we made table numbers with their face on it. So that was the compromise. That was where he was trying to get, right? Let's just have our memories on the table. We made table numbers with their faces on it, so their memories are on the table. But yes, we did not stick anyone's face on a vase. But, sometimes even in those moments, how do you navigate? I mean, that's kind of how I navigate those things, asking people direct questions. I try not to call one person when the other person's in the room. I don't like that. Like, we all have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
But just kind of like, it's more feeling people out, asking direct questions, sometimes asking it over and over again, maybe asking at the end of the meeting, coming back to it. So, because sometimes I find that, we don't all have it figured out. Even if you dated for 2 years before getting married, this is like the first big project you're doing together. And sometimes people really struggle about how to compromise on this project, both of a wedding and in life. So how do you navigate those sorts of challenges, right? With finding a compromise between two ideas, two cultures, and all of that?
Yeah, well, first of all, my rule is always, because I'm a premarital or marital counselor, all meetings I like to have with both people. I don't like, and I know this is hard for people to do. I don't like people trying to pay for like individual sessions. Like, oh, I just want to talk to you, Rev Roxy. No. If you want individual therapy, there are other types of counselors and therapists for that. I specialize in dealing with the couple, right? So first of all, my style and my theory of doing counseling is not even 100% exactly like my husband's, which is kind of interesting to watch us do counseling together. But I actually like to watch people go back and forth for a little bit. I actually watch them go back and forth, and I don't interject. And I like to analyze how people fight. Yeah. How people debate, how people argue, how people tells me something about them as a couple. So I don't try to like resolve things. My theory and how I like function is I let people go at it. Hence why I love reality TV. I'm not going to stop you. Like, go at it for a little bit. Let me see how you guys naturally engage each other. Is one person a bully? Do you guys allow each other to speak and listen? Like, I need to see that, first of all, before I could even interject, because I need to see who you guys are organically. The next piece is when it comes to the wedding day. So it depends on what the argument is about. Is the argument about something that has to do with the ceremony, the wedding day, which is a one-time event, or is it something about how they're going to function in life? Those are two different ways of how I engage with something. If you're dealing with the wedding day, like say something is something about the wedding ceremony, I try to meet as much as possible in the middle of the road, because it's a one-time event and there's no do-overs. So it's really not fair to somebody if it's 100% sometimes one way or the other, unless it's a negotiable to someone. So there's categories, right? What is your negotiables and non-negotiables? We need to discuss upfront what those things are, and then we can navigate what the compromise is going to be, because everything can't be non-negotiable. If I'm starting to deal with a human being that's like, everything is in quadrant 1 for me, everything is important, I'm just like, you're just going to lose this battle straight up if you're going to have me mediate it, because you can't do that. Like, marriage isn't like that. So for you to act that way about your wedding is insane, right? You have to have a compromise. So I love soca music. My husband loves country music. Trust me, there's nothing more opposite than that in the entire world. So I had to figure out, or we had to figure out, but really me, because I was the bride, when we were going to play this country music and when we were going to play my soca music. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, my soca music will really be the party, and your country music will be like when people eat, and it's like, you know, like, you got to make the compromise. You have to have a conversation out loud. So it just depends on what we are talking about. When we're talking about things that have to do with everyday life, we got to go deeper as to why you want that. Why you want that, because this is a real decision that you're going to practice. And my goal really, when I'm having the premarital counseling with you, which is why sometimes people decide to do marital counseling, is to truly, my goal, even though it's lifelong marriage, it's really getting you through a successful first year. Because that first year can really make or break people. Okay? Some people really have some damaging trials in the first year, right? Which is why I said in another live that I'm kind of happy. I don't want to say I'm happy for the coronavirus, because I'm not. But I think the coronavirus era, like the crisis, is really putting people who are in that engaged stage through the ringer right now. And on so many levels, whether it's financially, spiritually, relationally, it's putting people in a certain kind of position that I believe once they come out on the other side successful, that truly they will have a nice platform possibly for marriage, right? And so I kind of like a little bit of conflict. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I like a little bit of conflict. I like a little bit of shakeup. I like a little bit of disagreement, because it's hard to say that it's a one-time answer unless we're talking about the wedding specifically. So I deal with two different things while going through premarital counseling. It's talking about the ceremony or the wedding compromise, and then the marriage compromise, which are two different things. I think when it comes to the wedding day, you meeting in the middle is imperative if for both people it's non-negotiables. But we need to honestly look each person in the face and say, what is something that you just truly is not important to you? I don't believe that the groom needs to be involved in everything. I don't believe both people need to make a decision on everything. I don't. I think that's chaos, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that things that mean the most to people, they should become leaders in pioneering and bringing decision and resolve to those things. And is divide and conquer. You know, we're not going to sit down together as a couple and make a decision on the color of the napkins, the this, the fork. That's crazy. That's madness. Marriage is not that way. People who I have seen try to function that way in their first year of marriage, oh, me and my husband going to make every decision together. It's a waste of time. I'm like, y'all are two grown adults. Y'all think y'all about to sit down and make a decision together on every single thing? Two functioning adults? Nah. No,
and I think that's a big point, because I think that a lot of times when it comes to wedding planning, I mean, thankfully, most of my couples are very understanding of each other. But sometimes people are like, man, I really wish like my husband came with me to this and to this and to this and did this tasting and did that and did this. But then it's just like, you know, you can tell when someone's like checked out and that's why they're not there, or if they're just like, you know what? You know, you have good taste buds. You know, if the chicken tastes good to you, then I'm sure it's probably going to taste good to me too, type of thing, you know. Or if someone's like, you know,
or to be
I really
honest,
want
your
to.
day's going to go so quickly, you're not even going to remember it.
There's that too. There's that too. But I mean, you know, everybody has the things that are really important to them. Like, so just to toss it out there. So like our couple that we worked on with together, Tracia and Marcus, you know, Marcus cared a lot about the video. He cared a lot about the entertainment. There are actually a number of vendors that he, you know, kind of took the lead on, you know, speaking with them and saying, okay, I like this person versus that person. But due to work, he couldn't make it to the food tasting that we had. One of the food tastings, we had two. So one of them he couldn't make it to, but it was also the Caribbean tasting. So he's just like, you know what, Tracia, you're the one who's from Trinidad. So you could do the taste and let me know how it went, you know, and we'll be good. And of course, you know, Tracia was like, I wish he could have come, but of course he couldn't because of work. It wasn't like he just couldn't. And we just kept it moving. We didn't have to like reschedule the whole tasting because he wasn't there and this and that and the third, and just keep like, you know, looking for this perfect environment. And I think that a lot of times with weddings, it's a very emotional time. And sometimes people feel like if this person's not there, they don't care. And I think that that's a tricky thing. So I think it definitely means a lot, especially coming from you, that someone, you know, knowing that there are certain things you can make a decision on your own, right? You don't have to make every single decision together. You can, you know, come up with an idea, discuss it with the other person, especially if there's a financial consequence to it, right? And saying, hey, this is going to cost a little bit more than I thought. What do you think? And then come up with a decision, but not where you have to be in lockstep together. Because I'm with you. I believe in dividing and conquering in everything I do. I don't think, you know, everybody having to be together in a room. Yeah, it just takes forever. And, you know, and again, not everybody has equal understanding of certain things, you know, and one person may just understand colors and what colors go together a little bit better than the other, or one person just may be better at budgeting than the other, you know. So everybody kind of needs to decide their lane and, you know, who's going to be making decisions about what, obviously speaking with the other person, but it's important to understand those strengths, you know, before you step into planning the wedding or, you know, and everything
understanding the strengths. See, people keep skipping this understanding piece. This is like skipping premarital counseling. You skip it, and then you find out you in a jam, and you don't understand why stuff not working, why y'all not communicating, because you're skipping the most important part, is learning how to communicate. And like, you know, like right now, Josh and I are talking about, being stuck at home. You start to look at your home and decide if you love it or not. You're like, we need to change this wall paint. And him and I try to sit down and pick out a couch. First of all, we're on two different planets when it comes to like what is beautiful, you know? And I just say to him, how about we create a Pinterest board and hire a professional designer to just do it? And he's like, oh, that's gonna cost a lot of money. I was like, yeah, but you know what? If I go with what you want or you go with what I want, we're gonna change it in 2 years and we're gonna end up spending the money anyway. Like, what's really the smartest idea? Should we just stop everything, save our money up, hire a professional to handle it, and we just give them a Pinterest board of what we like and it's their job to merge it and figure it all out? Or do we do it ourselves? And of course, he's like, the cheaper way is to just try to do it ourselves. But every time we start in the conversation, we're not on the same page. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, pay the professionals who are there to merge ideas and to help you. And this is our job. This is my job. This is your job. And to be honest, this is what you're paying for. When people are like, well, what am I really paying for? Like, why do I need a planner? Or why do I need a premarital counselor? You paying to take some of the daggone headache off. That's what you paying for. You know what I mean? And somebody who can chime in that's not just y'all two. Two people is very complicated. Anything that's more than one person, listen, is a TV show, is a reality show waiting to happen, because it's going to be drama. It's going to be drama. This is why reality TV is awesome. Where two people are gathered is a show. Okay? Because it's going to be some disagreements. It's natural. I've never, ever met a couple ever in my life that just get along easy breezy, smooth, and whatever the other round is. It's not. We have some questions here.
So I was gonna hop into that. So I have one. So one person asked, how do I handle a bilingual wedding? Let me read it exact. Okay, I wrote it down. I can't find it in the chat. But the person asked, how do I handle, bilingual wedding? How do you find a balance between the two languages without exhausting the attendees? This is an excellent question. We
Excellent.
definitely have managed this a few times with our Cameroonian clients, because those who are from Cameroon, many of them speak French, but then many of them also live in the United States, or maybe have lived in England before, et cetera. So they also know English. So they know Cameroon, they know English. Some of them even know a third language as well. So it's definitely, figuring out how to navigate all of that. I would say in our case, we definitely did speak the majority of it in English, but the ceremony, I believe actually, now that I think about it, in both cases, the ceremony was in French. And it was largely because of the churches that they attended. And the churches offered a mass or a ceremony in French. So everyone got to hear, the mass and ceremony in French. There were certain parts that were translated, but not everything. So I hear what you're saying about exhausting people, where, you say something once, then you say it again, where everything you say gets repeated. So far, we haven't had that where every single thing that's said gets repeated. But we do have, there were certain parts of the ceremonies that were repeated, certain parts weren't. But again, there was also giving people that context ahead of time, right? That we're going to go, that the ceremony will be in French, and, not necessarily in the reception will be in English. So we had that. Also, at certain parts of the reception, certain things were given in French. So there were a couple people who gave their toast in French, but the MC spoke English, but the toast was given in French. Or there was one wedding that there was a surprise performance. And so one of the groomsmen hopped in and, kind of emceed it and explained what was going on in French. So I think that it's one of those things in just understanding that it's hard to translate everything in both languages, but you definitely want to focus on the language that most people understand. And obviously there'll be some people who may not understand, especially like a grandparent or someone who just maybe doesn't speak English and maybe came just from wherever, whatever country that is where you speak another language. So that's definitely one way to incorporate it. Another big one, of course, is having 2-day events. I can speak from, I'm Nigerian, for those who don't know. And of course, a 2-day event is more expensive. So I'm just going to start with that. It's 2 venues. You may have the same photographer. You get a discount for the second day, but you're still paying for 2 days. It is more expensive. But on that first day, you can have everything, literally from back home, right? The whole ceremony can be in the second language. When you attend an Ethiopian wedding, the mouth is typically 100% in Amharic, right? That's just how the events go, right? So that's a big consideration if you have a lot of people who don't speak English, or if it's split in the middle. Maybe a 2-day event could help so that people feel, incorporated with both. And of course, having some music that's in the other language as well, that everybody can dance to, but then some people can understand. So those are some ways to incorporate, where you have a bilingual situation. That's something that's pretty common with multicultural weddings or intercultural weddings as well. Roxy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so 2 things. So I've never actually done a wedding that had to be translated, although I've done a 100% Haitian wedding where I know that if it was done in Creole, it might have been really exciting, more exciting. But the client really wanted me, and they were just like, I need you to just do my wedding. And so it seemed like everybody understood, but I could hear when I went to the cocktail hour, everyone speaking Creole. So especially the older generation. So I was flattered that they still wanted me, even though they were like, you don't speak Creole, but we want you. But I do want people to understand that my background, right? When I went to seminary school, I spent a few weeks in Ghana and Togo as in a seminary course that I took, church leadership in the African context. And I also, the church that my husband's a full-time pastor at is actually 100% Taiwanese and Chinese. We're the only people at church that are not Chinese or Taiwanese. So I have been in a lot of multicultural ministry situations. And at one point in my life, I really thought that I wanted to be a missionary. So I would say you really want a professional. Let's say you hire an English speaking officiant for your ceremony. You want someone who has the experience dealing with a translator. Oftentimes, when I was in Ghana, or specifically Togo, where they speak a tribal language, they have more than one, and they have French as their European language, and people understand English. When I preached in English, I literally had someone translate it into French and also into the tribal language. So what I had to do is provide my script in advance. I couldn't be last minute. I had to be someone who knew how to write and who knew how to speak in a way that could translate into other languages, right? Which means you can't use slang like, hey guys, cool. Because when you translate that to a tribal language and even into like French or any of the romantic languages, that doesn't really make sense. So you have to be someone who is mindful of all of those things, who can prepare a nice, succinct, precise, engaging ceremony that can be translated, and even with the translation, still come in at half hour, which is what most venues give you. Because like you said, if it's too much translation, oftentimes it can start to take away from it. So you really have to hire an officiant who knows how to write. I mean, that's a skill set that's not, if you look on any officiant's website, to even include mine, I don't even showcase that like this live right now is the first time I'm probably even revealing that. But I have that back. I'm not afraid to do that. And I've had people actually ask me like, oh, I really don't want to get a translator. I'm like, to be honest, here are going to be your options. You either get someone totally different to do your wedding and speak in the language that you want them to and just be happy with that, or you can hire me and give me that chance to showcase to you that I can write precisely in a way in advance for the translator to be prepared. I'm going to be prepared. And I'm going to help the translator be prepared. But there's a process that if people have never done before, they don't know when to stop. They don't know when to make that nice pause in order for people to stay engaged. So you have to be a true storyteller in order to pull that off really nicely. So that's where the performance piece comes in. And that's where it's not just about getting somebody for $200. You want to get somebody with talents, skills, and abilities to be able to make it what you want.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent, and definitely an excellent point. And just underscoring, I think remembering that the wedding, like the time that you're pronounced husband and wife, is the ceremony. So again, that's part of the reason that in the past at our weddings, where there has been, two languages, it usually has been at the ceremony, and it definitely takes some coordination. So you want to get professionals. This isn't the place you want to skimp or rush or leave to the last session. Second. Okay, so I'm going to answer two questions at the same time because they're related, from two different people, but they're related. One person said, how do I tell my religious family that we're going to have liquor at the wedding and we still love Jesus? And then someone else commented and said, I get it. My family is raised Baptist. And someone else said, my fiance and I love trap and hip hop music, but we're going to have some older folks, some religious people, and some coworkers invited. So how do we find a balance there as well, where we can play back that ass up? Okay, so whatever. So for those of you who don't know, I'm in ministry myself, so I tend to not curse. That's why I paused. But anyways, so let's hop into this. So here's what I think. Two things. And number one, you need to figure out who's paying for the wedding. Truthfully, if you are not the one paying for the wedding, it's going to make this part a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Right?
You better say it.
If you're not the one paying for the wedding, it becomes harder.
Yeah.
If you are paying for your wedding, then it's easier. But if someone else is paying for it, it gets so much harder because they're going to be telling the DJ, oh, make sure you do this. I didn't pay you to play that so-and-so music, whatever. But if you're paying for it, yes, you want to please people, but you have more control. So I'm going to start with that. Anyone who's watching this, who is not engaged, who's just curious about weddings, who loves saving stuff on your Pinterest board, please start saving money for your wedding. That way you can have it your way. All right. That would be where I would start. Besides that, I would say, here's the thing. It's all about scheduling. Like I had a wedding where half of the family was very Muslim and they didn't believe in drinking alcohol at all. And then the other half of the family was like, okay, we're cool. And the couple themselves are really cool. They wanted to drink. And ultimately where we landed with that wedding was it was going to be dry for the most part. And then we were going to have a champagne toast. And the champagne toast was a little complicated because certain tables got apple cider and certain tables got champagne. So we had to monitor that very closely. So that was a whole lot of logistics just for that. But I take it that that's not necessarily what you want, right? Just the champagne toast. One suggestion I have is have a dry cocktail hour. I know that might sound crazy, but dry cocktail hour have some fun mocktails because cocktail hours when people are walking around, including the officiant and the grandma and everybody, they can see what everybody's getting from the bar at that point in the night, right? Because everybody's together in the cocktail hour space, they can see what's being passed. But most of those people, once they go in and sit down, they're not getting up again. So if your cocktail hour is dry, but then the open bar starts, during dinner and dancing, etc., that's one way to have that, so that at least they're not, seeing cognac and stuff in their face all through cocktail hour. It is a bit, it does a little bit take away, because I know that during cocktail hours when people want to drink the most, but if you're really, really, really not trying to show anybody that there's alcohol at the wedding, this is the best way to conceal it a little bit. Now, truthfully, I would say that this is probably more of a conversation, because at this point, this is where I'm flipping to kind of what I would do. This is a point where you and your husband are creating your own union, right? So you kind of have to decide, do we want to just say this is what we want and like be firm in what we want and just say we're going to have alcohol, we're not expecting anybody to get drunk, this is what we want, and like having that conversation. It really comes down to you two, if you're willing to have that conversation with your family. But if you're trying to kind of avoid the conversation, which I have had in the past, where people are like, I can't have that conversation with my family, whatever, we just need to come up with something else. The easiest way would be, those high traffic areas to the bar, to have it be mostly mocktails, and then later on when people are partying and dancing, then introduce the open bar a little bit later. I know that may not be the preferred way, but again, you have to figure out whether you want to have the conversation or if you're trying to hide the alcohol. And again, there's nothing foolproof. People may still notice that, some people are drinking, etc., later on in the night, but that's something to consider. Also, I find that a lot of times, certain ministers, I know Roxy stays to the end, but certain ministers and certain religious people leave early. So at that point, they just may not be paying attention to what's happening at the bar, which is another reason that, maybe just having the alcohol service during dinner and afterwards could help, right? You could even have wine service to the tables and skip the tables where people are don't drink, or serve them non-alcoholic wine at those tables, which again takes logistics, but that's something that you can consider. But again, we're putting a lot of effort here to avoid telling people that there's alcohol. So if there's opportunity for you to, have that conversation, sit down and say, hey, this is what we want to do. We don't think anybody's going to get drunk. We just want to have, alcohol at our wedding. This is something that's important to us. And we just kind of want you to understand that that's something that you definitely want to have a conversation about. And again, that conversation will be easier if you're the one paying for the wedding. If not, it's a lot harder, because again, alcohol costs more than having a dry wedding as well. So that would kind of be my thing about that. Now, going to the music, again, I think that the ceremony is a good place, for religious music. It's a very good spot to have, Christian music all through. That's probably what you want for the ceremony. But then when you get to the reception, usually you start with, just fun music that everybody can dance to. And then maybe after about an hour, then you can switch to the trap music, right? I think one thing that I will never forget, when I went to one of my cousins who's old, she's a little older than I am, so it was way back, went to her wedding in Nigeria. Literally at a certain point in the night, the MC took the mic, turned off the music. They were just like, mommies, daddies, aunties, uncles, thank you for coming. This part is ours. Yeah. Cut to trap music. That's it. And I mean, we've done stuff like that similar to just letting them know, like this part right here is for the young people. We're cutting to this, and just letting them know. Now, again, I think that this could be hard for people who maybe have never been able to tell their family what they really want. I know a lot of us really want to please our parents to the point that we never tell them what we want. But I think this is, definitely when you're creating a new union with someone else, you're going to have to sometimes be able to tell them, what's important to you and what you want. And that's definitely part of it. But these are some ways to make sure people enjoy themselves. If you start with 90s music and some other stuff that's not really, that everybody would enjoy, and then cut to the trap music and everything else, then it's more fun. And I think it's more fun towards the end of the night anyway. I don't think you want to open the dance floor with Juvenile anyway. It's probably better for a little later in the night anyway. So that's my 2 cents. So Roxy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, there's no easy answer to this, just because America's full with so many religions and it's so complicated. And the reason why it's complicated is because the reasons for no alcohol is always complex. And there's no one answer for it, to be honest, because okay, if I'm ordained by a certain denomination that you ain't supposed to drink alcohol. But in my head, how that translates is I'm not supposed to drink alcohol. Doesn't mean that Joe Schmo, that's not a part of my church, that's coming to my wedding, I should impose that on them because I am not drinking it, right? So I always have to get into the complexities of the thought process. Is it that alcohol cannot be in their presence? Because then you can't go to certain restaurants. Do you not go to certain restaurants because there's a bar? over there. There's a bar over there. Do not eat in that restaurant because there's a bar over there. Like, I just need to understand really how this all really makes sense. Or is it that you don't want to partake in alcohol because you don't have to drink alcohol? Or should I have a paid bar? Should I make it cheaper on myself because these people are so important to me and I don't have an open bar, but I have alcohol, but everybody who wants to have alcohol will go ahead and it's a cash bar. You go ahead and buy your alcohol. Sometimes that slows people down on getting drunk. Because they're like, listen, I ain't gonna be here all night paying for all this alcohol all night. I'm gonna have 1 or 2 drinks. You know, that might stop people from getting drunk, honestly, when you have a cash bar versus an open bar. Like, why do we feel the need? We have to ask ourselves, do we feel the pressure to have an open bar? And what does that mean to us and our loved ones? I know when my sister was planning her wedding, they had an open bar but they had a weird open bar. It wasn't a full open bar. It was like they had a certain amount of money they gave the venue for an open bar, and then the venue was supposed to check in with
consumption.
Something like that. So
consumption bar.
Yeah, so when it comes to alcohol, there are options. I would just have to, I would say talk to your venue and see what your options all are. That could, because if the goal is I just don't want drunk people at my wedding and that's disturbing to the religious people, then you can kind of deal with that differently. Like, to be honest, people drink more when there's an open bar. When there's an unlimited amount of alcohol, people oftentimes, I've seen them at weddings, they don't normally drink that much, but because it's free turns people into crazy. Like, just because it's free, they drinking 10 champagnes or 10, shots of Hennessy or whatever, just because it's free. And they just feel the need to walk out of here crunk. If you want to avoid that, then you come up with a plan that will deal with that. But if you're dealing with religious people who are like, it can't even be in my presence, I don't know. I think that's more of a conversation, just because, like, are they just trying to impose that at your wedding? Because, again, do they go to certain restaurants? Because if every restaurant got a bar, so do you not go to restaurants because they got alcohol? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm that person that asks questions that make sense. Like, I'm definitely religious, and I definitely believe you should not be like all sloppy drunk at people's weddings, and that's disgusting, and like, who wants to be around that? But at the same time, my religion is my religion, and I don't feel the need to make Joe, who's not my religion, be a part of my religion for a day. Like, I don't know. I just don't feel like that's really doing nothing for Joe. You know what I mean? Like, if Joe has a real issue, then let's deal with the real issue. Let's not deal with shutting down the whole situation, because I need someone to be like me. I think that that's a real thing, and I face it often because I'm dealing with people who are coming from one side of the family that Jehovah's Witness and the other side is Baptist. I mean, these are like really different things. And it's like, why are we going to do what we got to do? We got to answer those questions. And again, who's paying for it? Because if the Jehovah's Witness side of the family paying for everything, I'm sorry, boo-boo.
There's no alcohol.
There's no alcohol. That's just what it is.
There's no alcohol at that point. Yep. I mean, I think that pretty much, hits it on the head. Again, comes down to whether or not you want to have the conversation. If you're trying to avoid it, I gave you some options to avoiding the conversation and what you could do to kind of hide it. And if you want to have the conversation, she gave you some questions that you can ask. Now, I do want to mention, I know Instagram cuts off after an hour, and we're pretty close to that hour. So I just want to thank everybody for joining. We're not ending, but I'm just, wrapping it up just in case Instagram cuts off today after an hour. Thank you for your questions. Y'all can still feel free to add more hearts and likes and comments and all that stuff. My therapist make me tell my religious parents before the wedding. Yeah, you need to tell them. And I'm seeing a lot of good points, LMAO. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This replay is going to be up on YouTube, so you can watch everything we said again on YouTube.
Make sure you save it. Make sure you put replay.
I'm going to save it. I'm going to send it to you. This is going on YouTube tomorrow, so you can watch the replay, send it to your friend. If you're like, oh, man, I should have told Jane to come and watch this, you can send it to Jane tomorrow. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your questions. If you guys have any other questions, DM it to us. If we have enough questions, who knows? I may schedule a part 2 or something. We'll come up with something else.
I think we need a part 2. For sure.
We might need a part 2. We might need a part 2. But I just want to say thank you. I mean, I see a mix of couples, brides, vendors, everyone on the call. So it's been amazing having everyone on there. Like I said, this is Married by Rev Roxy, joining in on our IG Live. Make sure you follow her. Again, more links to her are going to be in the YouTube video when it gets posted tomorrow.
Yeah, she got all the links. A full citation.
All the links. I'm all about links. All right. So it looks like we got 20 5 seconds remaining. So thank you so much, everybody. Last shot to add your hearts. We love you too. So send us your love, send us your hearts. Tell people about it. Obviously, this is going to be up on Instagram for 24 more hours anyway. So tell people to come back and watch the replay on my page. Follow us. Like I said, we've got lots more intercultural weddings coming. There's a lot.
Yeah, and I'm going to be going through down memory. Since we're in quarantine, I'm going to go down memory lane. I'm coming.